Carlton, have you heard of the Adinkra Project?
Adrinka? Who is she?
Carlton Adinkra. Anyway, the Adinkra Project, formerly known as the Adinkra African Dance Theater, is a part-time professional dance company located in Atlanta, Georgia. The company performs nationally and performs a repertoire of works that focus on social justice as well as educating audiences about Black identities worldwide.
Oh yeah, it's coming to me now. That's the company you dance for. Work. Company members come from an array of ethnic and artistic backgrounds, but all center on the idea that Blackness needs to be celebrated. Bless God.
Be sure to follow them on Instagram at Adinkra Dance or Facebook, the Adinkra Project.
In light of Miss Rona, the boys at BGO Pod have adapted a virtual platform to conduct and record interviews with this season's very special opinionated people, or VSOPs for short.
We thank you for bearing with any technical difficulties in advance. This pandemic has been raggedy, but in spite of, the conversations we've had with our VSOPs have been refreshing and were well worth the technical struggle.
This episode is also brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard already, Anchor is the easiest way to start your podcast.
Big facts. 1, it's free. 2, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your track straight from your phone or computer.
3, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many, many more. And 4, you can make money with no limited listenership.
It's everything you need for a podcast in one place. Carlton and I have been using Anchor for a few months now, and we're a bit obsessed.
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Don't wait, honey. Your future listeners are waiting.
Now, enjoy the show.
You have reached the voicemail box of
Carlton Taylor?
And Sean Brinkley.
We are unable to answer the phone right now.
So either fuck off or enjoy the show.
Ain't a period.
Okay. We're here.
We are here and we're queer. How are you, Sean?
Child, there's a lot of things I want to fuck up.
Oh God, not fuck
Between
up. Okay.
and
We're gonna have to bleep them out. We're gonna have to keep bleeping
man,
them motherfuckers out.
I want to
Where we at?
because what's his name?
Now you calling? You gonna have to bleep that out too, honey.
Got the right motherfucker because he could not understand what the fuck I was trying to tell him this week.
Yeah.
I'm trying to edit the goddamn the motherfucking episode from last week, and he was just not comprehending what I'm saying. But anyways,
Problematic.
we're here.
We're here.
I'm just trying to gather myself. I attempted to clean the apartment because I was gonna have guests and shit over today.
Yep. Attempt.
But
Attempt is the
I
key
mean,
word.
you see, you see what's going on.
Right.
I don't know. How are you? Before I just start ranting about my life, because I'm a little
I mean,
toasty.
same energy. It's just been one of those weeks. It's been a very
I'm so weak.
Yo, we got people in the studio, and the studio audience is just acting a nut right now.
Y'all, because one of my lovely sorors, because we're doing and not to go off script, but we gonna get back on.
We gonna get back on.
But
Typical.
we're doing a little bit of video recording to produce footage, and a girl sitting on the couch. So in order to not get in the picture, she is crawling like on the floor to get around. Like it's too much. It's too much. And you just hear her sliding, just like it's too much for me. It's too much. Anyways, Carlton.
So life is just being that life. Not to get kind of, I don't know. I always feel weird bringing this up because I don't want nobody's empathy. But Thursday was Lauren's birthday.
Yeah.
And so my late best friend's birthday was on Thursday. And so I celebrated with her other best friend Nettie and her other guy best friend Elijah. Nettie and Elijah are twins. And we went to her plot and kind of had like a little decorating thing. So we decorated her plot. And then we went to Red Lobster afterwards and got some drinks to deal with the very crazy moment. Yeah. And we were like, if Lauren was drinking, would she drink? And we were just really torn as to whether or not she would drink because she was just such a, like, Lauren was like, how can I describe Lauren? I really can't. She was just such a character. And like she was the type to be like, why are you doing that? Would your mama be okay with that? I'm gonna tell your mama. Like she was that type of person. And like I got tattoos and Rembrandts of her that she probably wasn't gonna like. She probably wouldn't have approved of. And so we were like, was Lauren gonna drink? But then you think about her mama and her mother is like a party type. And so I'm like, she probably would have drank, but it probably would have been like, the occasional fruity cocktail,
a little dabble.
Some wine.
What's that? That weak ass sangria that I'm pretty sure all of our parents have drunken on it at some point. Got like 5% alcohol, tastes like juice. It's like real big, like that. Real big bottle.
Carlo.
No, it's not Carlos.
Oh,
it's like
the
the
Mandarin.
Shit you find in Kroger.
The Mandarin.
Like, they have it right up in the front, $5.98.
Is it boxed?
No.
Oh, I don't know what it is.
Child,
my mama don't drink.
If you see it, you know the it.
Maybe my mama don't drink, so I feel like Lauren probably she would have just kept it low, or she would have surprised us and been on the brown. I don't know what my sis would have done, but I know she probably was gonna smoke. I don't think Lauren was a smoker. Yeah, but so I did that. That was this week, and I mean it's been crazy. Like 2020 has been showing its bare ass. It's absolute bare ass. Took away our Black Panther. Took away John Lewis, Jesus, Naya Rivera. Like, it's overwhelming. But through it all, I've just been...
I forgot all about her.
Not you forgot about her.
No,
I get it. It's trauma.
Trauma.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah. So,
I can't... All of that, I can shed a tear right now.
That's not, because...
that is... Oh, my God.
I'm, like, so fragile right now, so let's not do that.
Not as in I forgot about her, but like,
right, the situation.
Shit, that happened. Like, what the fuck?
Yep, it's crazy.
That's too much for me.
But it's all right. It's okay. You just gotta stay strong. You just gotta stay optimistic. I think it's the biggest thing because we don't want their lives to go in vain. You know what I'm saying? Like all of them did a lot of great work for their communities.
Yeah.
Naya with the LGBTQ community and the Latinx community, Chadwick with the Black community, Lauren in every space that she was in, she was always very positive, and very, like her energy is just contagious. And so, your mother even commented under a picture that I posted. She was like, thank you for keeping Lauren's memories alive. And I'm like, they're going to stay alive forever, period. As soon as I'm able to dedicate something to her and her family, I will.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been my week. That's been my takeaway from the week because it has been draining. I think it was Friday night that I put on some heels and danced around the house and got really drunk.
Yeah.
Yep, it was Friday night because
Energy.
I didn't function yesterday. I was so hungover.
that was definitely me yesterday. Because did you see my Instagram video?
No, I was hungover. What happened? Maybe I did. Wait, no, you sweeping the bitches away. I did see that.
No, because let me tell you something about Twitter. And I don't know. That is probably like the worst social media app to me because I don't know where people find. And it's one thing niggas do have this day is some audacity. I don't know where these people be finding the motherfucking courage, balls,
the goal,
clitoris, whatever it is, to say what they want to say. And you can say what you want to say because it's a free country and all that other shit. But people just spout so much nonsense, and it's not always ignorance. It's just nonsense sometimes. I'm just like,
Interchangeable to me. Shit.
I'm just like, what the fuck? So I ran, I'm just scrolling, and this was after, because we found out about the passing on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Took a break after that, because literally Deja was on the phone with me, and she was like, he passed. And I was like, okay, that's a lot. Then I think that was like the first, and like I got on there, and the next thing you know, like I just saw a wave of stuff, and I was like, all right, this is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I get on there the next day, and I'm just scrolling, because you can find, like, outside of the ignorant motherfuckers who are on there, you can find some good cackles on Twitter. There's some good cackles. There's some
There
good
are
threads.
some really good cackles.
You can,
and some that are very informative.
Yes. So there's some good stuff. So I'm just, Saturday morning, like, I'm waking up for training, and I had training yesterday, but I'm not even gonna talk about that. But I ran across this post talking about, what was it? Because I ran across a lot of different posts, but they were talking about, they was like, oh, I don't know how you can be Christian.
Oh, I saw that, girl, and I retweeted exactly what you said.
Support the LGBTQ. And I was like,
they said you can't be Christian and support LGBT.
Right. You can't be Christian.
False.
And it took me about 30 minutes. It took me about 30 minutes before I said what I said, because when you run across posts like that, it just, something in your spirit is just like, I can't not say nothing, but when I do say something, it gotta hit. It gotta hit how it's supposed to hit. So I was sitting there about 30 minutes, and I'm completely ignoring my virtual training that I'm supposed to be on.
It was virtual.
Yeah, it was virtual. Of course it was.
Okay. But y'all going into the office, girl. What you mean? Of course.
I'm not even about to talk about my place of
You
work.
would think it was of course, but common sense ain't so common.
I have no words.
Shit.
But
Ghetto. I know this is also ghetto.
It's too much. 2020 is too much. And bringing it back, I basically said, I was like, you can actually be Christian and be a part of the LGBTQ. Wake up, sis. Like, and I wanted to do my thread, because I'm good for a Twitter rant. I don't give a fuck. I don't fuck them characters. Fuck all that shit. Like, I'm good for a good old thread to thread Twitter rant. But I was like, I'm not even about to get this energy, because when I see stuff like that, I don't just respond. I actually see what's going on under the comments and stuff, to make sure to see where people's heads are really. Because I'm like, all right, they saying some wild shit. Let me see if people underneath saying some wild shit too. And the only reason I responded, and when I typically respond to things like this, is when everybody underneath is saying some wild shit too. And I was like, no, we gotta correct.
We gotta change this energy. It's musty. We need to sage the thread.
We gotta correct all of this. And I was just seeing all kind of stuff. I mean, granted, you have your people in there who, like, come on, y'all, like, this don't even make sense. But that was my Saturday.
Not your Saturday was one tweet.
Basically,
that's heavy.
Basically, it really took up 5 hours of my lifetime. Because because when you see stuff like that, you read through what people are saying. When people are like saying, quote unquote, this is facts and all the other stuff, you gotta cross check people.
Yes.
And I was just reading up on, like, Christianity and different things like that, but I'm not even gonna get into that. Because we have a whole subtopic dedicated towards religion. So anyways,
sure enough, honey,
I think,
okay, so we gonna
these
motherfuckers,
right, we gonna roughhouse it, just
roughhouse it,
shaking the table.
The table shook, honey.
So we're gonna
legs falling off.
We're gonna transition very abruptly. Roughly.
That was an abrupt transition. Jesus Christ.
I'm usually good with it, but
this one is it's different. So
yeah,
it's different.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
So we have two VSOPs, and I'm saying VSOPs because
Period.
I'm a little
Inebriation.
I'm a little on the tip.
Boom.
And not the not
He said he on the tip, honey. He said he about to ride that dick.
and I wasn't talking about penis.
I know you was talking about the tip of tipsy. He said he just a little bit of tip.
on the tip,
He easing it in, honey.
just a little bit,
Just a little bit.
just a tad.
It's the real tip.
Oh my God,
We just all over the place.
we are just acting up today. Or I'm acting up.
We always acting up.
Okay. Anyways, we have two very special opinionated people today. Some people who I hold near and dear to my heart. They have done so much for me, and
Oh.
just based on a lot of the conversations that we've had, the work that these people do, it's like we think BGO and we think about making a motherfucking difference and advocating and all these different things. These are definitely people who we wanted to bring in to our social justice conversation. So,
Yep.
Just context for our guests. Are they part 3, part 2, part 3, part 2?
One of the parts.
Anyways, we've had several conversations with wait, no, we haven't. They're our first.
Yay! Inaugural conversation. Y'all, we're
I told you I'm tipsy.
inaugural conversation.
They are not in that's my work chat going off.
It's all right, honey.
Anyways,
It adds character when there are disturbances.
no, these are our first guests for our social justice
Yes!
subtopics.
Oh my God!
So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves,
Yep.
and then we're going to get into this thing. Y'all just, tell the people about yourself, who you are, what you do, all that other stuff, where you're from.
Why you love Sean?
Yeah.
Yes, do it. He needs all the positive information he can get.
Oh.
NK, we'll start with you.
All right. So my name is NK Kandua. I am what I now identify as a dance educator and choreographer. I am the founder and artistic director of the Adinkra Project, which is a dance company here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm from Atlanta. Both of my parents are from Ghana, and I feel like that's pretty simple. I'm not too excited. Oh, I do teach dance at Kips Drive Academy, so like dance is literally all I do all day. And it's something I am deeply passionate about, and I'm actually really excited to be here because I love dance in like the context of social justice. So like this is like super exciting.
Yes.
Glad to have y'all.
Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead. Too much.
Okay, hi, I'm Sashay Narcisse. I am originally from New York, but I do live in Atlanta. I love Sean because Sean loves me.
Oh. Period.
I am a classically trained dancer, although I am an HR professional. Currently, I am starting to pursue my journey of my nursing degree. So, pray for the kid.
Yes, nursing.
Child, you got that chemistry, cause
I enjoy long walks, reading, cooking, walks on the beach.
Come on, day profile. Praise God.
we love that.
On the podcast called Black Gay and Okay. Shooting shots.
I am just here to express and participate.
Yes.
I love it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So, NK, I gotta ask you, I didn't know you were from Atlanta. What part?
Well, Atlanta is relative. I grew up in Clayton. I went to Lovejoy High School, went to Lovejoy Middle School. Like, I am what the people have dubbed the Clay Coho. So,
Oh, look, honey, that's the wrong playing card.
Southside.
I don't know what that is.
That's Southside, right?
Yeah, that's Southside.
I've been here before.
I got Boulevard and yeah, Lovejoy.
I was just there. Never mind.
Oh. Bring it
back.
Never mind. Never mind. I'm gonna tell on myself.
Okay. All right. So the topic for part 2 VSOPs is social justice.
Yes. So, if you guys don't mind, and I may be, hold up, I'm trying to gather myself today. The transitions might be rough, but as we flow into the conversation, it typically flows. But I brought you two on because you guys, I think, have an interesting sort of position when it comes to what it means to be Black in America. And when I say this, you guys both spoke on your backgrounds. Sasha, I don't think you said originally where you're from.
I'm originally from New York, but both of my parents are Jamaican. So
Okay.
I was raised pretty traditional Jamaican.
Yeah. So
you two would classify yourselves as first generation Americans.
right, is that safe to say first generation?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we don't want to offend nobody. Because we're trying to make sure we educate and doing things right. So with you guys being first generation individuals in this country, can you talk about what's your experience? Sort of having strong ties to your parents and your parents' culture, and then growing up in America. Can you guys talk about those experiences?
It's way cooler now.
It's way cooler now.
Yep.
Dig into that. What does that mean?
I was really sheltered growing up. So both of my parents are originally from Jamaica. My dad is from Kingston. My mom is from Manchester. Daddy's a country bad boy. My mom was a little bit privileged, but still in Jamaica. Same thing. They both came to the States around their teenage years and went to college here, and then had kids. Had us all in New York. Bada bing, bada boom. Sash. Welcome.
Okay.
So I kind of grew up differently from my friends, I would say, because I wasn't allowed to watch TV. I wasn't allowed to watch, I grew up watching JATV, Jamaica TV, Jamaican nursery rhymes, Jamaican news. How they got that in the States, I will never know. But
I was just about to ask that.
that's what I was watching on VH.
Love it.
Outside of the Little Mermaid, that's about it. That's all I was gonna get. So I had a lot of different views on stuff, and it wasn't until I started public school, or actually started school, and I was exposed to different backgrounds and different children, that I realized that I was different, and I was not cool, and I was not okay, and my food smelled weird, and it was not normal, and I'm weird, and I'm this.
And this is all things that people have told you.
Right, but
Oh, wow.
when you're 6 in kindergarten eating some oxtail and rice and peas, you don't know that that's not okay. That's okay to you.
Mhm.
That's normal to you. And then Jonathan comes over like, what's that? It smells weird. Oh, this is just oxtail. That's not normal. We don't eat that.
That's that New York shit
Well,
for real.
I do.
Right,
So,
period. And I was
sorry.
eating that shit too. I still can't trace my remnants all the way back.
I would say it wasn't until I got to college was being Jamaican okay. Oh yeah, I love me some oxtails. Don't know why there's an S on it, but I'm glad you tried it. Wonderful. But it wasn't until I actually got to college where I was able to, you have situations like you have CARIPSA, you have African American Association and stuff like that, that embraces it and brings it together and helps to provide that other outlook on it. Like, hey guys, it's not just America in America. There's these other places in America too, even though the countries are different and they're from somewhere else. These people are here and they have different cultures, and this is cool, and this is not normal for you, but it's their normal. And being able to express that and get along with that, and then start to make friends outside of just my Caribbean friends, and learning to relate to other cultures and relate to other people and stuff like that. So when I was in school growing up, it wasn't cool. But once I got older and you get to deal with other people from different culture backgrounds with different opinions and more open-minded to it, then it becomes a conversation that can be had. So, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a really good one.
I don't know. I feel like I'm a little traumatized just a little bit.
Understood.
It's
That's
a
some
little bad
shit.
taste in my mouth just in there, but because I'm older and I know better.
Yeah.
I can do better.
Yeah. NK, you were about to say
No, I
something?
was just gonna say, like, I was just gonna add on, like, that's a really, really good point. That it's much cooler now than growing up, as opposed to what was the reason I couldn't make a lot of friends in first and second grade has been the very reason I made a lot of friends throughout college. It's very interesting to see that shift because now, if you ask me, I always say like I identify as Ghanaian American because so much of my upbringing was so deeply Ghanaian, but there's so much of it that is also very deeply American because I was born and raised in the States. And so that is a very, very interesting dichotomy because I don't recall a time growing up throughout grade school that I was like, oh, I'm so super proud to be Ghanaian, you know? And now I can easily say that and people are like, oh, wow, like, tell me about your culture. Can you, like, what languages do you all speak? Like, people want to know more. And that has not always been the case. But it's nice to see that shift. It's nice to see that shift. But to speak to that trauma piece, I do find myself also in places where I'm like, if you want to learn for real. Like, don't just try to pick up the stuff that you think is cool and then leave the rest of it because all of the culture is important and it all is intertwined. And I think a lot of times people like to pick and choose like, oh, well, I like this food and I like this artist. So like now I know about the culture and it's like, no, you don't. There's so much more to it, you know? And I think it's extremely important that if people want to be educated, that they take those extra steps.
So with you guys sort of talking about those experiences, because I think we all sort of grew up in like very similar demographics. I mean, Sasha, you East Atlanta, Zone 6, Arabian Mountain type shit. Lovejoy, Jonesboro, you know. So for the most part, those areas are, you know, people who look like you. Like primarily Black, African American, whatever you want to designate it. Why do you feel like you guys experience as much like, I guess, difficulty or had these sort of traumatic experiences or outlooks when it came to your childhood? And just looking back on it now, because you guys said, you know, you're in a place now where you're able to like, all right, I'm grown. I can look at things and really analyze how they were. Like, why do you feel like things were this way?
I think I've actually taken a lot of time to think about this. And if I were to put it succinctly, I think that the same media that has African-American people thinking of Africans as being barbaric is the same media that shows African-Americans as barbaric. Because when I go home, like my family makes it very clear to me, oh, we're Ghanaian, we're not American. We're Ghanaian, you know, we don't do those things. Whatever, like if they see something about like a drive-by, like that becomes their association with African-American culture. It's like, oh no, we don't do those things. We have culture, we respect each other, so on and so forth. But the same media is also showing Africans as being very like uncivilized. And I think a lot of times it's just about exposure. And for children who are still making sense of the world around them, if all you have seen is people look a certain way, automatically when that small exposure is going to frame your entire thought of that group of people. And I think that's what happened. And I think as people are getting older and exposure is happening and they're meeting new people, you know, awareness follows. But growing up, especially like 90s, early 2000s, that was not the reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I commend my parents because I think in them coming to the States in a teenage, like coming to the States as a teenager versus coming to the States as a kid or coming to the States as an adult, I think their view, their forgiveness, and their compassion is different at that age bracket.
Yes.
So once they had kids, I did not get my bias until I was put into the world. When I was in my home, yes, this is Jamaican. Yes, this is American. Oh, American girls do that. Jamaican girls don't do that. But we're all Black was the basis in my household. There was no there's American black people and then there's Jamaican black. Like we was all black.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's American culture and this is Jamaican culture, but there wasn't a separation of light skin, medium skin, dark skin, blah blah blah.
Right.
I didn't have that.
Mm.
It was more so, Sasha, you're black, you're a Nubian, you know, we all came from Africa, we're all this, we're all that. It wasn't until I started school and was exposed to adults and children and stuff like that did I feel that bias. And then that's where that bad taste in my mouth comes from, because coming out of my household, daddy's like, everybody's black, man is man, woman is woman, we're all equal, blah, blah, blah. I get to school and I'm getting in trouble because I don't say yes, ma'am. Or I'm getting in trouble because I just say pen and I don't say ink pen. Or y'all making fun of me or coming at me sideways because my food smells differently than yours. I didn't have that in the household. I didn't have that bias. I didn't have that attacking or whatever. But once I got out of the house, I had to assemble and act accordingly, because now I'm like, okay, so I'm weird because you're closed-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then that was the constant battle. So home was safe and I could be myself at home. But when I was outside of the home, I had to pretend to be something that was enough for you to be okay with.
That's very interesting. And I'm not sure if you guys have listened to previous episodes, but we're pretty candid on here. But we're like that so we can have very open. I cannot talk because the alcohol is just hitting me right now.
The inebriation.
I'm about to fall off the tip in a minute. But just so we can have open and honest conversation. And honestly, a lot of the things that we talk about on here are things that like me and Carlton deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it's interesting that you talk about that experience. You know, this we're all black. We're all a part of this. What's the word? Diaspora? I'm not good at the terms. But we're all a part of this diaspora. But me existing as a black man in this country and just going through college, even in later years in my adult life, you run into a lot of first gens, sometimes second generations, or people who've migrated here, whatever it may be, who don't have that outlook. And it's very, I'm this. And you see a lot of conversations, a lot of dialogue that actually puts down people who were born here of color. So like, it's very interesting to hear that. Like, I guess in my opinion, I don't see that happening across because we're going to dive into other questions related to this, because I wanted to ask you guys, you know, when you hear the term black, do you identify as black? You know, what does that mean for you? What is your take on that, especially having ties to other countries outside of the U.S.? That was a lot, but you know.
No, that's real though. I feel for me, I guess it comes down to like the difference between race and ethnicity. And so for me, when I think black, I think like, and this is just me, my personal, like personal concept, right? Like when I think black, I think my black skin, like I am a black person, right? And I think that if someone were to ask me my ethnic background, it sounds like a mouthful, but I always say, well, I was born and raised in the States, but both of my parents are Ghanaian, because I think both of those things are important to know. But I identify as black. So, yeah.
Yes.
Same. I'll rep New York till I die, but I'll always put in that 2 cents. Both my parents are Jamaican.
No.
And I mean, it makes sense because race is a social construct.
Right.
With your ethnicity, that's your bloodline. That's your ability to trace certain things back. And oftentimes it ties in like culture and other things that can influence your perspective on the world. So that makes all the sense in the world. And I think as humans, we try to make a lot of things simple. We try to simplify things that are extremely complex. Mm-hmm. Like identity is probably the most complex thing ever. Like, I mean, if you just look at the classification of fucking animals and trees outside, like they all have different Latin names that go deep into like the different complexities of that specific species and the family and all the other classification things. But they all trees, right? And so when it comes to humans, it's like that's the idea of gender and the idea of race and all these things that honestly work against us in some ways, because you have race and it's like, okay, Black folks, they're going to be the ones that are disenfranchised. All right, women disenfranchised. And so you're actively working against these constructs, right? As opposed to working toward not the end goal, but you just being a person and having and existing as a person. And so I thought it was very interesting how y'all both talked about media consumption.
Yeah.
And how in Ghana it was this understanding, or at least from what you said, NK, there's this understanding that African Americans have this barbaric way about themselves. And then that same media kind of flips the script. And then for you, Sashay, you say you consumed a lot of Jamaican media growing up, and in your household, you knew that Blackness was just that. And so I'm curious to know kind of a little bit more of how that made you think about the people around you.
It killed it for me. So coming from such a positive outlook of it, of we're all Black, we all came from Africa, this like equalness. Coming from that, and then I'm put into the world, and now I'm not your equal because something is different, and you're alarmed by that, and it bothers you. Although everything is different for me, I'm in it. So I'm choosing to be in it and try to understand. Like, I remember being at lunch in middle school, and I had met Marcia Griffiths, and I think I was like 12, 11.
Now we name dropping.
Marcia Griffiths is a
Vincent,
legend in Jamaica. Like, she's a massive legend in Jamaica, and a recording artist. So for me to be that young, and I met Marcia Griffiths a hotel room before she's going to go perform, and I done met her, I done watched her get ready. Shoot, I met Beyonce, if you ask me.
Right.
I get to school and I'm excited, and they're just like, Sashay, nobody knows who that is, whatever. And I'm just like, so y'all don't want to know who that is? Like, we're not going to talk about, okay, cool, all right. Like, it turns you off. So then when you get to that point, like, no, I'm not American, I'm Jamaican. That's where that comes from, because you don't want to associate with them. You don't want to be a part of that, because that negativity was given to you. Right. So now you're just like, it's not that hot no more. I'm okay. Yeah.
Right.
And then that deters the place where you get your friends. Right. A lot of my friends are Caribbean.
Yeah.
The handful of friends that I have that aren't Caribbean, I really fucking y'all the wrong way.
Right.
But majority of my friends and most of the friends that I started to make, we were all first generation, or your parents are from VI, or your parents are African, or like it started with Caribbean, and then it was just, if you were foreign and you weren't American, it was safe. Because at least I know I'm not going to be judged, because you've already been through it just like I've been through it.
So it was that idea of culture. Because when I think of culture, it expands, because it's like connectivity, your ability to relate to somebody because of a similar experience, a similar location, a similar level.
Right. So that like, if I'm eating something, they're not going to be like, ew, they're going to ask me, just like, I'm going to be like, so how do you make food? How does that work?
Right.
What do you eat with that? That's the conversation we're going to have versus, no, if I don't like the way it smells, I'm not touching it.
Right.
And it's a different type of comfortableness.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, NK, what are your thoughts?
Oh goodness. Remind me the question, because I was trying to get my thoughts together.
Yeah.
No, it's loaded.
It's loaded.
So like, I just thought it was interesting how you, and we're going to like divvy more so toward the social justice in a bit, but I just thought it was interesting how you and Sashay expressed different types of understanding of how the media from like your heritage is just a little bit different. Like the people who are from your parents' native space consume and understand the African American experience differently, and then you being on this in America and seeing how that's being portrayed. How have you been able to kind of see either yourself or other people through that experience?
In some ways, I'm still like working through. To be completely honest, I think when I visit Ghana, I feel very American, because I wasn't born and raised Ghanaian. Like, I grew up in the States, and so a lot of things about how I was raised were very American. But I still feel at home, but I also recognize like I'm not as Ghanaian as those people who have grown up here. My little brother, for example, was born here, but moved to Ghana with my mom when he had to be like 3 or 4. And he's now 19. Everything about how he thinks is super Ghanaian. And so I find myself in a lot of conversations with him like, yo, like, chill out. And it's really interesting because I think now I find myself finding cultural similarities more than anything. And I think a lot of times people fail to recognize that part on both sides. Because like my family, my father's family at least, can be super, super traditional. Like when my dad passed away, it was very like, oh, we need to pour libations. We need to start calling, you know what I'm saying? Like it was a very like serious thing. Like it needs to be done 7 days after the death. It needs to be, you know, it was very, very clear. And I'm like, you know, something like that is just as when African-American people say, oh, like, we're going to pour it out for the homie. You know, a lot of times people don't understand where that comes from, but we are all truly connected. And I think that's something that's missed along the way. So I find myself in a like really unique space where it's almost like a point of privilege because I'm able to witness both sides and kind of like draw those connections.
Connected.
Yeah. So
That's beautiful.
if I can, yeah, it really is. If I can backtrack just a little, because you know we're talking about social justice, and we're probably going to jump back and forth between two different conversations because there's a lot of different ways we can go with where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to social justice, Sashay, you know, you said when it came to like, all right, you know, there was a disdain, you know, when you really started experiencing. Is it safe to say African American culture or like Black culture or being in those spaces? When it comes to social justice, and you know, we have our silos, we have our cohorts of people where we're existing in, and it's like, what's your take on, I guess, the whole spectrum of what it means to be Black in this country? Because, you know, to me, it seems very divided when people take that sort of side. You know, I'm going to hang out with these group of people, and I'm really not going to identify with this culture. So when it comes to some of the things that we've historically gone through and still going through in this country, it's like, what's your take on it? Because it's almost like, if I can be candid, it's like, well, I'm not even from here. I don't really identify with what they do. I could really care less. You know? I mean, that's the energy I've gotten sometimes. And it's not even only from Caribbean people, African people, not generalizing anybody, but also Latin people and people from Latin American based countries. Like, there's this energy that like, oh, that has nothing to do with me type things. I've seen that.
The idea that comes to mind is that you're stronger together than you are separated. So I feel like in the world we live in, you make so much more money separating people versus being unified and being together.
That's loaded, honey. I like that. Because, I mean, and not to intrude, but it's literally, it's so true. Because, I mean, like, that's what, and I'm going to be very candid, that's what white people have done to the Black community. They've kept us separate, and they want us to stay separate while they monopolize and create generational wealth. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, like separation is so deep. Like, you can separate it from, light skin, dark skin. You can separate it to the Blacks who are into rock music versus the Blacks who are into neo soul or R&B or trap rap versus regular rap. Right. Separation is the key. As long as you're separated, we're not going to get along. We're not going to be a community. We're not going to be on the same basis. That idea of Black and we're all Black does not exist for a lot of people. And to try and bring that in and have everybody to come to the table and just think about that's very hard.
Yeah.
Because I want to be different. Because being different is cool now. Like, being different is a big deal. So like, yeah, I do my eyebrows. Oh, well, I wax mine. Oh, I sugar mine. Oh, I pluck mine. We all do our eyebrows. Does it really matter how you do it?
Right.
And some of them still be looking like,
Who did it? Why?
ooh.
That's not
And why you keep doing that?
Anyway.
Just being separated, everything we thrive off of it. We
Right,
thrive
yeah.
off of being separated, and to be one and to be a community and to be together is so hard because everybody has an opinion, and everybody wants to be heard, and everybody's opinion is better than yours. That mentality, that thought process, that's very hard to break. I don't see it happening in my lifetime. Call me a pessimist, but I think it's something that's going to occur down the line. But time is on its own. Like time does what
Yeah.
it wants. I don't think it's something that's going to happen right now. I do think it is a conversation that needs to be held. I think it's a conversation that needs to be forced. I think it's something that needs to be touched on, just like how the NBA didn't want to play because of that black man who almost lost his life. Like that, these conversations need to be had. Your opinions need to be heard. You need to hear other opinions.
Right.
You need to have that conversation. You need to argue, converse, whatever. But you need to break it down. The part where we need to break it down, that part is not happening.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I have come a very long way. Younger Sashay was not very open or nice to other cultures as I am now. And I won't even say other cultures. I'll just say American culture because that was the culture that came from me the most. I was okay with Latin culture because my family is slightly Panamanian.
Right.
So I grew up with bilingual. I grew up with Spanish. I grew up with Latinos and all kinds of food and stuff like that. I'm used to that. Latin music, salsa, all of that. I'm okay with that. African culture. I grew up with a very Afrocentric father who was very deep within that culture, wanting to know about our ancestry. Selassie, oh gosh, his name has lost me right now. Marcus Garvey, all of that. Like, all of that, I got that part too. But then I got to the next culture that's supposed to be the best, and y'all bomb and be cool and freedom, and y'all hate me.
Yeah.
And I feel it.
Yeah.
It's very hard to like you after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your first impression is your best impression.
Yeah.
So ever since that, I've always tried to just be open about it or turn the other cheek and try not to get upset about it. But sometimes you catch yourself and you're just like, yeah, I'm Jamaican. I don't do that.
Yeah.
And that's your default. And that's where you go back to. It's hard to break that when you've been introduced to it in such a bad taste.
Right. And when it happens over and over
And it's
again.
consistent.
Right.
It doesn't stop. I still go through that today.
Right.
Like, it's a consistent battle. It's not something that changes or anything. Like, it keeps happening. But you have to be bigger than it. You have to step above it.
Yeah.
You have to have that conversation. You have to force them to have that conversation. Like, you need to ask questions. You don't know if you don't like it, whatever. That's fine. But you do need to ask about it.
Yeah.
Wow. NK, do you have a take on
No,
that?
I completely agree, like 110%. Like, I'm right there with her because if I could just add on, I would say I think there is even this manipulation of how human beings think that has led to how Black folks, and that's how I just refer to us in general as just Black folks, have been separated because, you know, if I ask you to draw a chair right now, chances are you're going to draw something with 4 legs, a back, and a seat, right? You're not going to think to draw a couch, but a couch is also a chair. You also won't think to draw a car seat, but that's also a type of chair. And I think human beings have like this natural, like, I need to be able to categorize things. And because we have this like because that's how we make sense of the world as children, right? Like, we want to categorize things, and because we want to categorize things, we start to do it with each other. The thing is, human identity is just so much more complex than objects. You mentioned trees earlier and how, you know, like, we have all these different types of trees, and we've learned how to make sense of the world and the differences in different types of living organisms, but we don't know how to do it with human beings yet. And it's very, very interesting to watch. It's very, very interesting to watch. And I do agree. I think it will change at some point. It's just not I don't see it happening while I'm breathing. I just, because I teach grade school, I still watch kids who are being indoctrinated into very problematic mindsets because of how their parents.
Yeah.
And as long as that's continuing, you're going to have kids growing up with mindsets that are very, very flawed and that don't help us do this, come together, you know?
And even to go back to the point of separation of like Jamaican versus America, you have other countries and cultures too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big thing about Black Americans is that, at least I can't speak for anything else, but for Jamaica, coming from the island of Jamaica, majority of the population is Black.
Mm-hmm.
So racism is not like a thing.
Yeah.
The most they're going to experience is colorism. You're going to see some prejudiceness, towards the Asians and the Indians coolly within the island, but majority of the island is Black. So racism is the thing. So then coming from Jamaica, some Jamaicans are going to look at Black Americans as, oh, they're lazy, they don't care, they're this, they're that, but they have no idea what Black Americans are doing in America.
Right.
Until they come to America and then they see it for themselves and they're like, oh, that's when the perspective changes.
Right.
But then you're in America and Americans are treating you like, oh, whatever.
And I think that's what I wanted to touch on. Because if I can talk about my experience a little bit, and I'll focus more on my adult years, because I mean, I grew up East Atlanta, Decatur, all that good shit.
Where's greater?
When it want to be.
Right. You know, I grew up around, I mean, what we see is African American culture, Black culture, whatever.
Black excellence, honey.
Right, Black excellence. You know, I was very comfortable in that space, but fortunately, me and Carlton we both did music, and I mean, the arts in general just has a way of connecting you to other things. That's one, but when you have somebody, and I really want you to talk about this, NK, you know, what you've really done when it comes to dance and connecting people and sharing stories and educating people. I really want you to talk about that at some point. But we just had a person in place who made it a thing, you know, FAMU graduate. All right, you can go to any school you want to for music, but I'm about to let you know about these HBCUs. I'm going to let you know about the music that our people, and when I say our people, I think I'm thinking very American, because he taught us jazz and blues. Like, those are all American-based things to some extent, because they have connections to very traditional things. So he made a thing where, like, you're about to learn about these things, and honestly, I think that was why I was able to. She is snoring.
I was trying to be quiet. I was trying not to look.
Child, she is on this couch.
That's why I gave you a little tap earlier, because I saw you looking. I was connecting.
Woo! But I think that piece right there, because I mean, it's crazy that you brought up separation, because there's so much separation.
Yeah.
Within this thing we call Black in America, there is so much separation.
Mm-hmm.
Where you grew up at, East Atlanta, Detroit versus Atlanta, East Coast, West Coast. Like, it's so much.
I feel like I like the separation in terms of it giving you your identity. But at some point there isn't like, we don't come back.
And we hold on to
like,
it.
We don't come back to just being Black. It's like, oh, we're Black. No, honey, I'm this. But we're Black though, right? No, I'm this. And I want us to come back.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the most part, like, what I was really getting to is like how my band director sort of paved these spaces, and my mom. Like, my mom was like, you're not the only person who exists in this world. You're not the only culture. So she made it a thing where she exposed me to a lot of different things. And honestly, I think that's why I was very receptive of a lot of different things, because the people you're talking about, I'm not that. Honestly, I
wouldn't talk about it.
Honestly,
that's what I said. That's some New York shit.
Right. I mean, it's some people down here.
You are absolutely correct.
Who is raggedy as fuck.
And I'm gonna make a statement, because I know some people that were targeted.
But honestly, when I got to college, because college was the first time, it wasn't my first time around white people, but honestly, it was my first time around other cultures with people who looked like me. And that was an interesting experience for me because not only was I Black and I grew up in America, but I also was bisexual and I had feminine tendencies and I wore 2 buns in my head. So my interactions were very, I guess what Sasha sort of described, I wasn't that. Like, I was very timid when it came to interacting with those people. Honestly, I tried, and not those people. Y'all know I'm not trying to do that. But when it came to interacting with people who look like me of other cultures and other ties, I didn't want to because I was scared, honestly. And granted, America has done a lot of bullshit to me, but I think some of the worst forms of discrimination and just some of the most hurtful things that I've experienced have been from people from other cultures and then people in my own community when it comes to African Americans. Like, I've experienced the worst form of homophobia when it comes to those things. So I was very timid. And I almost didn't want to interact.
But you love me so much.
I do.
Period.
I mean, she's here. So I mean, I really just wanted to get that out when it comes to, I guess, the African American experience. And I can even ask, do you even agree with the term African American? Because there's been a whole debate, forums, all kind of other stuff when it comes to African American, Black American, all that other stuff. I don't even know how to speak. I just want to be right.
I could be wrong, but I tend to get real logical on that part.
Right.
It's kind of just like, were you born in America? Okay, you're American.
Right.
Were you born in Ghana? Okay, you're Ghana. I'm American. I'm Jamaican too, but I was born. I don't know. I feel like African American is, you're trying to hyphenate us. We were born here. You stole us and brought us here, and then we reproduced.
But everybody after that
was born here.
Yeah,
we all have a destination. We all have an origin.
But I think what I was getting at, to add another layer to it, because I'm adding so many different things to it. But right now, I feel like I don't have anything, and
what do you mean by that?
It's like I don't really have a place of belonging. And
your differences don't collide with any group.
It's not even that. It's just like this, because it's interesting that you brought up, all right, I'm American. Like, we're trying to hyphenate. Like, honestly, logically, I'm American because I was born in North America.
I'm indifferent.
That makes sense. But it's like all of the things, and even some of the things that I just talked about. And we throw on, the layers of racism, systematic oppression, all that other stuff. It's like I don't feel like I'm American.
No, that's a good point, though.
But that's true, though.
I don't feel like I'm African. I don't feel like I'm.
No, that's a very.
Well,
I just sort of sit in this.
But what's so different? What's so different about who we are? Yeah, what's so different about us though is that literally, Sasha said it. We were brought here. A lot of who we are as people is based off of the trauma that our ancestors experienced.
Right.
A lot of who we are as people was erased in history. Mm-hmm. Those connections to our lineage were literally disconnected. And when we were brought over and our ancestors were split up, their families were split up and sold separately.
Yeah.
And so it was all intentional with the idea of getting rid of who we are as people. And so it does make a lot of sense that you feel that you don't have any belonging, because unfortunately Americans are who we are as a country is just so juxtaposed and fucked. Like, it makes sense that you don't feel like you have any belonging because essentially you weren't supposed to. You were brought over here to work.
Right. Yeah.
And we weren't given rights. We weren't even considered an entire human being. And so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately the system is still built off the backs of slavery and off the backs of us not being people.
Right.
And so I think it's very important us being people, but us not being treated as people. And so I think it's very interesting because there is this conversation about African Americans and Black Americans, but I think it goes back to that idea that we're all Black, and that.
But that's such a hard concept for everyone.
It is a really hard concept for everybody to grasp, because the people who weren't a part of that trade, the people who were, and even the people who were a part of the trade, it ended up in different places other than America. Because the West Indies was part of that trade. Europe, there were slaves in indentured service in Europe that were brought from Africa. And so it's that understanding of our displacement. And I think we're just trying to make sense out of that in so many different levels. And I feel like it's a little easier for others to kind of make sense out of it.
I think NK has
put you on the spot, but I
no, I was having a lot of thoughts as you all were talking. And it's interesting because I keep thinking, what keeps coming to my mind is where my family's from. My family's from Elmina, Ghana. Both of my mom and dad, like, very, very typical story. Like, both of their parents went to high school together, grew up, had kids. Like, it's a very, like, intertwined type of family. And Elmina sits on the coast of Ghana. And if you, like, ever get the chance to Google, like, the Elmina Castle is literally it's an old slave dungeon. It's literally where the last point people would be at before they were put on ships. And it's only in the last maybe 20 to 30 years that the Elmina Castle is treated as a historical place. Throughout, like, since the transatlantic slave trade stopped, it's been used as a school, as a place to train police officers, so on and so forth. Like, it was just a building in Ghana. Like, it was just like, oh, we're like, we could just, and it's so unfortunate because I think those are the impacts of colonization. When structures are built at a certain point, it was never intended that Black people would be in the United States, have children and have children and have children, and those children would call this place home. And so it is a very unique thing. I get what you're saying, Sean, when you're saying, like, you're being oppressed in your own home, essentially. And that's a very unique thing because, like I was saying earlier, when I go to Ghana, while I don't feel super, super Ghanaian, because both of my parents are Ghanaian and I was raised the way I was, I'm able to kind of, like, code switch in a way and smooth it in, right? The same way when I'm with my American friends, I know how to, like, there's a way to engage and I'm able to get there very easily. But when I'm in Ghana, I don't feel oppressed. Like Sasha was saying earlier, like, everybody Black. Like,
I be lit. As soon as I get off the plane, Jamaica, let's have.
It's here that being Black becomes, like, such a big, heavy thing because it's generations of carrying a burden or a burden that's placed upon you of being oppressed. And, you know, while slavery doesn't necessarily exist and overt segregation doesn't necessarily exist, we also now have structures that disenfranchise Black people. And it's just really, really unfortunate because I think what would fix that is that coming together of people as, hey, we're all Black. And if we just take the time to sit and talk to each other and understand who we are as a people, not just culturally, but, well, we'll say culturally, like, as the first thing, but just understand, like, who we are, and we're super, super connected. You know, like, we're just Black. Like, that's just what it is.
That's it.
I just think that it's so unfortunate that other groups of people have been able to impose this sense of not being good enough or being less than worthy on an entire race of people, and it continues to exist generation after generation after generation.
Here's something I've noticed, though, and I've always questioned it. To go back to the whole African American or American portion of it, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was younger, I would always ask my parents, I was like, so what's the difference between American and African American? Because I feel like you combine it. So, like, being American is a nationality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Being Black, or once you move from nationality, then you're going to what, your race. Your ethnicity or whatever, right? But we're all American if you're born in Africa, you're African. If you're born in Europe, you're European.
Mhm.
If you're born in South America, you're South American. If you're born in America, but you're black, you're African American. Why aren't we just American? And then on top of that, in my experience, most of the people that I've been introduced to or been exposed to who have pride in being American are not black. They're white.
And you know, Toni Morrison, she's one of my favorite authors, God rest her soul. She has this quote, like, in this country, American means white. Everyone else has to hyphenate. You know, like, people are Asian American. People, you know what I'm saying? But when you hear American, I think naturally, even when we start having conversations, I think naturally people are thinking white people.
Yeah, and
I'm Jamaican. I'm Jamaican American. I'm Asian American.
First American.
And and I think because I think that speaks on everything that I was talking about, because me growing up, like that's what it was. Like I was African American. I was this. There was no you belong here. Like it was always you have to make it out. You have to do better. You have to overcome. That's my struggle. And I think it goes back to like us really having conversations, because I feel like there are a lot of people of color in this country who were born here who have that natural clash with other people who weren't born in America. And it's like it's not even that we're fighting. We're not even fighting a different battle. And a lot of times we're fighting very similar battles, because when we even go on historical world history on them, like they fucked up a lot of shit in a lot of different places. So when it comes to oppression,
say it.
I mean, Britain, Portugal, France,
white people.
Politically correct,
you are.
The paler faces.
Oh my goodness, no! But it honestly bothers me, and it's probably about to segue a little bit, because we have to talk about LGBTQ, because it is Black, Gay, and Okay. I've said that twice this season so far. But
it's okay. Come on, segue. It's a
Do it
transition.
one more time.
But I find it so hard, because honestly, it's safe to say that we're probably speaking to the choir when it comes to this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people who are around us have very similar frustrations, very similar behaviors and all that other stuff, but the conversation doesn't always go like this.
That's-
And honestly, I find it so, when you really sit back and think on it, I don't understand how people end up arguing, because it's like it makes sense. Like it makes too much sense. Like if you really sit back and be like, yeah, you know, well they low key fucked us all. You know, they
mine is more important.
They set ties in Jamaica. You know, the raid of Africa. You know, they fucked them up and took over every motherfucking country in Africa. Then they brought them to America, and then it makes too much sense. You know what I mean? So I don't understand how we just get to these places where we can't sit and talk about it. And I understand that, you know, when we get outside of this realm right here, you know, this is sort of a controlled environment, and we start experiencing the pressures of life and just the bullshit that just be happening. But I mean, I feel like even in that, I'm still able to come and be like, no, this makes too much sense. I mean, that's how I've gotten into spaces. You know, I'm friends with Sashay. I've danced for an African dance theater. Like, I'm able to get in these spaces. Why aren't more people able to have conversations and you feel me?
Well, I think a really good thing in all of that too is, like, Sashay, you brought up how you didn't feel like these places existed until you got into higher ed. Mm-hmm. And so it makes me wonder, like, why is it that we've gotten older? And I wrote this down in my notes. Why is it that we've gotten older and now we're aware that it's not just, because we know that, especially a place like New York, it's the fucking, first off, it's the city of dreams, and it's a melting pot. Like, America's a melting pot naturally, but New York is people from all types of the boroughs. Just
I think New York is way more congested though. Like you got more people knocking heads. You got the Jews, you got the Hasidic Jews, you got the Italians, you got the Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and the other.
But why did it take you bringing your ass to Kennesaw before you got that exposure and that acceptance from people? Why do you think that was? And I would have done something abrupt.
I think because I was finally forced to actually make relationships with people. I was out of my comfort zone.
So you were put into those spaces a little bit more.
I don't know how you got in the realm of Sigma, but
wasn't it a pageant?
Wasn't it a pageant? No, you were working with the pageant. Oh wait, no,
we're not going to talk about.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that.
Never mind.
Because there are realms to that.
Lapse of judgment.
Don't do Sigma like that. Don't do it. Don't do it.
It wasn't y'all as a unison. You know, sometimes it's just one bad apple to mess up everything for the whole class.
Jesus,
that's deep. Real deep.
But forgive and forget. You know,
you bless God for that.
Forgive and forget. Be better. You know,
have you even
apologies are accepted?
Oh, that's it.
Damn, you got me off track. What was I trying to say?
We were talking about why it took you coming to Kennesaw.
Okay. So once I got to college, I was no longer in my safety net. I was no longer within my community, with my Caribbean culture, with my Caribbean cousins, friends, food, whatever. Like my first year of college was death. My first year of college, I went to.
You went South Georgia, weren't you?
Yes, I went to Middle Georgia College in Cochran, Georgia.
Ew.
FYI.
Not Cochran.
South Georgia, that's different. That's
Moose
in Douglas.
exists in Georgia. In case you didn't
They
know.
sure do.
Mooses?
Yes.
What is the full form of moose?
Yes.
That's a great question.
It's moose. Moose is like deer.
Oh.
There's plural and singular.
Oh, yeah. They exist.
Okay. Whatever.
But I was ripped from my normal and I was put in school. And I got to school and it was culture shock like fuck. Okay? I got to school and I think I had an 8 a.m. freshman class. So I went to the caf to get food. I walk in and all I see is grits and wet eggs, no ketchup.
That's South Georgia.
The biscuits with like this white gravy stuff that's supposed to go on
the biscuits.
I never.
That's South Georgia.
And I could have just been like, oh my God, I'm reporting y'all. But instead, I just went to the fruit bar and got me some yogurt, some granola, and some fruit. And I called my mom and I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, guys.
That's a good old Golden Corral setup right there.
I don't know if this is going to work. Because I was like, what am I supposed to eat? There's nothing here for me to eat. Of course, it's all food. It's all edible. But I did not grow up. Sorry, that sounds bad. I mean, it's food, though. It's not, you can eat grits. Grits is food. But it wasn't something that I was used to or grew up eating. Yeah. So it was taboo. I was like, okay, so what do they expect me to eat?
Yeah.
Because I'm hungry. I'm 18. I'm about 104 pounds. I'm going to die. I'm going to starve.
I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Right? But I feel like the way I went about it was way better than somebody else if it was flipped. Okay, if it was flipped and you walked in and all you saw was ackee and saltfish and dumpling and plantain and bami, you're going to be like, well, what the fuck they think I'm about to eat? Excuse me, I'm hungry. Can I get some grits and some eggs? There's food. Like, I don't know. I didn't complain about it, but it was a culture shock. So I was just like, well, damn, this is about to be different.
Yeah.
And I was forced to, like, understand, ask questions, and get used to it. No, I don't eat grits. I don't like.
I don't either.
But
I mean, I don't really eat grits either.
Girl, I do. I slay some
I'll
grits.
eat a biscuit without the gravy.
I'll test some grits. The mother. I was supposed to get some today at brunch, but they forgot to bring them out. I was about to fight.
Cheese,
sometimes,
butter,
sometimes,
or sugar.
Sometimes.
Okay.
I like grits.
That there's different things you put in.
I like grits. Period.
Let me tell y'all something. Real disclaimer, because if I eat grits,
I'm tipsy.
It's only a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of cheese. That's it.
Okay.
Biscuits only with jelly or honey.
Okay.
Spaghetti, I don't do all that extra shit.
What's extra sugar?
You know, some people
Like
You
ranch,
know,
get
you put sugar in your spaghetti.
Oh, I do that.
barbecue
You put
sauce.
sugar in your spaghetti?
I think it's just because I don't like.
Right.
I'm not a big
that, right?
Italian food, bitter food. Italian food isn't bitter, savory.
Savory.
So I put sugar in it. I can't. It's okay. See, see. Talk to the hand session.
No, I love it.
No,
I
but
love
if I would have walked in that cafe, I would have been like, I would have probably walked to the fruit bar too. That's just South Georgia. No offense to you,
But
love
I
all
know-
y'all down there.
But I know other people who
That's
would have
middle
not
Georgia.
walked to the. They would have not walked to the fruit bar. They would be like,
Georgia Southern had a lot more food
I
than
need
that.
y'all to feed me something. I have a complaint.
We didn't have no
There's
plantains
no-
though. We would have been offended if they made some plantains. That would have been
We get
a,
offended when y'all say
a
plantain.
discrimination, an
We
abomination.
get offended when y'all say plantain.
What is it? Plantain? Plantonos. Can I say that?
There's platanos and then there's
Plantanos.
plantain.
Plantain.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Let's get back to it,
like
'cause
we about to go somewhere
But
else.
see how I came at you with.
Yeah, you educated me.
That's not how it be happening though.
It ain't how it be happening. It ain't. Okay, so
Anyway,
this is okay.
when I got to
Yeah,
college, I
go
was
ahead.
forced to come out of my comfort zone and
Yeah.
to learn how to network and deal with people and not just tolerate people, but to actually deal with people and understand people.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you have organizations like CARIPSA, Black African American Student Association, the African American Male Alliance, those type of things, where they get you to reach into like, hey, we're Black guys, we're all Black, but guess what? We got different stuff with it. And they bring it to you and they expose it to you and you get to be more comfortable. You get to ask those questions. And then when you're in college, you're not as, most of the times, most college kids tend to be a little bit more open-minded. Depending on what community they're coming from, they tend to be a little bit more open-minded because now you have freedom. You ain't never done stuff before. You can do this. Of course, you can drink, party, blah, blah, blah. But you can also join whatever clubs you want to join. You can do whatever you want to do. Your parents don't have to sign off on stuff anymore. Like you don't need a permission slip to go to this interest meeting to go look at CARIPSA because they have a fashion show. You don't have to do that. You get to and then you have roommates that you've never met who expose you to whatever you want to be exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
You're forced to come out of your comfort zone whether you like it or not. How you choose to operate and navigate that determines the type of person.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Okay, like summarize it.
That's it. You did that.
So, like, I don't know. I want to hear NK talk. What were you going to ask earlier about?
So I have two major things.
Two major things. Love it.
So when we talked about all of, Jesus, my foot.
And you just.
Yeah.
Y'all, I'm still on the tip, but I'm
a little
on the shaft now.
Okay, now
Way down.
Right. I'm 6 of the 10. 6 of the 10. No, but so we have to bring in some perspective when it comes to LGBTQ, because I'm sure you guys know me and Carlton do openly identify as people of the LGBTQ community. So when it comes to just talk about what is that?
What does that mean to you?
What does that mean to you? Your background, your upbringing, like what is that? And that's so loaded, but feel free to unpack it how you need to, you know?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off? That was not my intention.
No,
I think it's interesting because, you know, this is going to be very politically incorrect, and I feel like a few more things after will be politically incorrect, but I feel like a new letter gets added on every few weeks, right? And the more because I think it's important to try to understand things that you don't identify with, right? So while I identify as being openly gay, I do not have much of an understanding of what it means to be trans, because I don't have any trans people in my life. I don't have any trans friends. So like, if I do have trans friends, they haven't openly shared with me that they are trans. And so like, I don't know. And so like, I find myself trying to educate myself on things. And as I educate myself on like just other letters. I hate to say it, like, but other groups of people, right? I find that like it's really everybody who doesn't identify as like this like very boxed in version of person. Like, and I think it's just really, really interesting because I don't know, it's very, very interesting. I think sometimes I wish my desire is that like people would just learn to be people are just people. Like people are just people, whether and I think it's also problematic in a way because I find that, you know, gender identity and like your sexual identity are not one and the same. And a lot of those, like the whole LGBTQIA plus like community is grouped into one. And I think it makes it even more difficult for people who don't identify as any particular group of people to understand, right? Because me being gay has something to do with my attractions. Someone being trans is completely within themselves. That has nothing to do with what they are attracted to. And it's really, really difficult for people to understand because everything's just being grouped together. And everybody just, you know, just generally speaking, will always be like, oh, LGBT plus, LGBTQ plus, whatever the case may be. And I think if people just got their minds open just a little bit more and try to understand like, oh, okay, this person likes this person identifies as that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish there was just more open-mindedness as far as that is concerned.
I mean, we done had our problems. I done got into it. Well, not got into it, but got into it.
Where the baseline at?
It
was fighting, girl.
Because
15 in the bathroom.
I've argued with the mindset of.
Oh, I thought you meant like we got it.
No, we didn't get into it. I mean, besides the time I got real drunk and I was talking about I'll beat you like gas.
What?
Listen,
girl, I'm going to listen to the record on that one.
Woke my mama up too.
I was just drunk and
He was lit.
Yeah, that's the night I threw my shoe out the window. But whatever.
So Jamaican. Whew. Education is important. Okay, I will say that because I definitely saw on TikTok this lady making a video playing a very infamous Caribbean song that is derogatory towards the gay men. She's just having a good old time. And I'm just like, probably should have chose a better song. This is giving a different message, kind of making it seem like to your followers that you don't support that community or whatever. But whatever. Being Jamaican, it is frowned upon. It's like a disease. Okay? It's not something that you should do. You will be disowned. A lot of parents are gonna disown their picnic. Sorry. A lot of parents are gonna disown their child for it. You have those parents who are gonna love you either way unconditionally, but they're not gonna tell their friends. And then you can have the parents they're gonna love you unconditionally and they don't care. You their child, they're proud of you, whatever. There's levels to it. I do not know where it stems from or why it is the way it is coming from my culture, but it's frowned upon. I get very protective of my friends like Sean or you if we're in a Caribbean setting because I might have to fight. And I'm not going to let anybody come at y'all. But I understand, like NK was saying, there's a privilege being American and being Jamaican or being Ghanaian. There's a privilege straddling the line. And I straddle the line on so many things. But it's looked at in a total different sense of the way it sometimes is looked at, I guess, in the States or other countries. In Jamaica, it's a disease. Like, you're gay, you're this, you're that. Why? What happened to you? You don't like yeah? You don't like pom pom? What's wrong? You need to get baptized. You need to go back to sleep, wake back up because that's not normal. That's not just like, oh, your food smells. That's not okay. That's how LGBT is looked at.
Yeah.
Wow.
Where it stems from, I'm not completely sure. I'm not educated on that aspect, but it is very difficult to have friends within that section of life and then try to mesh it with mine. Most of the reason why I'm not going to mesh it is because I'm more concern of your safety than I am about you being part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're still going to get full sachet, but I'm not going to put you somewhere that's going to endanger you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't have a problem. I don't see the issue. I feel like we're all human. Whatever makes you you, and that shouldn't deter my friendship with you or how I deal with you because of something that has nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a hard concept for people to grasp.
You know what's interesting? I have 3 Twitters. And on one of them, I follow 2 accounts that are they're men in Jamaica that are very LGBTQ.
Oh no.
And
they exist.
I know they exist, but it's just crazy how it's just like, well, it's not crazy because I get it. It's that standard of it's you wanting to be accepted. It's that standard of culture, that standard of existing and wanting to exist for whatever reason. And it's so disheartening that you have, how far is Jamaica from like Florida?
Or 2 hours or so.
Okay, so you have this island that's 2 hours away from probably one of the gayest cities in America, probably in the world, Miami. And it's this level of just discomfort and
Just
insecurity.
imagine living in Jamaica.
Yeah, I couldn't. And
within that sexuality.
it's so funny because Crystal from the Read, I think Jamaica was doing these. They were paying Americans to come to Jamaica at a point in time, and she was like, "Shit, I may have to go back in the closet for this one." I was like,
and
"Damn."
The thing about it is that I know there's like this assumption and opinion that Jamaicans are disrespectful because you go to the restaurant when I've that, but it's a very respectful, proper culture, like manners and all of that within the actual country. So they are going to treat you with the utmost respect and like manners. And then as soon as they find out that portion of your life that has nothing to do with them, it completely changes. Flips. It's gone. Of course, they may not blatantly disrespect you, or maybe the men will, but the way they treat you or deal with you or converse with you is all going to change.
Yeah, Go ahead.
That part of it is also like cultural expectations, but I think a large amount of it is really just religion. When I was in high school and I was still working through my own like identity things, right? I had a lot of family members who were talking, like, because I have a very big family, like a lot of cousins, a lot of aunts, a lot of uncles, like, well, they were talking like, oh, maybe, right? And I remember my mom asking me, and I was like, no. And at the time, that was my honest answer because I was like, I don't know. Like, it was really just a no. And she was like, oh, well, I hope you know that I would disown you if you ever do anything like that. You can't bring shame upon our family like that. And I was just like, okay. And so if we fast forward to like, maybe 3 years ago, me having this conversation with my mom and telling her like, yo, like, I'm gay. Mind you, my mom was probably like the last person to find out, like for me, from my own mouth at least. She was like, oh, I'm just hurt that you wouldn't tell me. I'm hurt that I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I'm sorry, do I need to remind you just? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And if you ask her now, she'll tell you she doesn't even remember that. Right. Just like you don't want to remember. But I think a lot of times it is like my mom is super, super Christian. Like super.
Right.
And so she like was like, oh, what about what the Bible says, blah, blah, blah. If you take the religious part out of it, I think just culturally, it's not what they're used to. I think even in the States, where we've gotten to now is not where we were 50 years ago. It's just about education and people like, I think things start to shift when you actually know somebody that you care about deeply, identifies as, because you start to like, oh, wait a minute. Like it no longer becomes like easy to other people. And I think that's what happens a lot. It's like if you don't know anybody who is gay, bi, a lesbian, whatever, like it just a lot of times it just becomes, oh, like those people. And I think
Right.
now it's interesting because my mom and I, she knows, but she won't talk about it. And to Sasha's point earlier, like after I told her, she was like, "Oh well, it's gonna be up to you to tell your brother and your sister because I'm not telling them that." Like it's very like no.
Sorry. You got the parents who pretend like they don't know. You got the parents who know and just gonna act like they don't know if you tell somebody in front of them while they're there. You got the parents who are gonna love you unconditionally, don't care. You got the parents who are gonna love you unconditionally, but they're not gonna tell their friends. Or they're gonna lie to their friends and be like, "Oh yeah, he's good, he's in school, he has a girlfriend." No, he don't, Mom. What you talking about?
Yeah, I mean that's similar to my experience too. Hell,
I feel like there's shameless grandparents.
yeah, it's just the education aspect. You're absolutely correct. Because for me, like my mom mentioned it sometimes, and it should be like okay. And then my grandfather, I'm a part of a whole gay men's chorus. Like I've been advocating for LGBTQ rights since I came out of the closet in 2012, and my grandfather's still like, when you get your wife, and I'm like, that's not happening. That's not happening. I'm not gonna do somebody's daughter like that. He talks. You're so welcome, because I just know it happens, and it just breaks my heart. It's just this understanding. For some reason, it is the religious aspect, because I grew up Christian. I'm a preacher's kid, and like to this day, it's something that me and my father can't see eye to eye on, and that's fine. That's his prerogative. But it does definitely take having that relationship with somebody that you love and respect and care about for you to sometimes be like, okay, in my faith and who I am, in my being, this person means something to me. Mm-hmm. I've prayed for this person. I've been with this person through thick and thin. This cannot be something that's ill-intended. It cannot be a disease. This person is authentic in who they are, and they've touched me. And in whatever way, because I know God is very prevalent in my life, and he uses me as a vessel every single day. And so because of this, people have been able to be like, okay, I need to reevaluate myself. And for what it's worth, if people aren't making that known within that space that they are who they are, and unfortunately, and me and Sean have this conversation a lot, it takes the groundwork being laid out by some of those people to kind of get the things going. Be it representation, be it existing in that space. It's really hard, and you shouldn't have to do it. You should not have to do it, but sometimes you have to really get people to understand. Because, like, I have a fair amount of trans friends. That wasn't the case before I got to Georgia Southern. I didn't have not that I knew of, at least. Did I know anybody that's trans from DeKalb? I don't know. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. But prior to that experience, I was very ignorant to the trans experience, but I wasn't ignorant to the gay one. And so, and it's the same thing. The LGBTQ community were lumped into this cluster, just like African Americans were. And in so many ways, and that's why I get so clammy, because people are like, you're black first, you're not gay. You're gay second, you're black first. Like, no, I'm all of these things. And what you don't understand is that there's been a different level of disenfranchisement that's come with all these different spaces.
Right.
And there's so many things that we're dealing with inside of our community, like black community, we're dealing with homophobia. In the LGBTQ community, I'm dealing with the fact that I'm black. And so it's like, white men may not always look at me as an equal or as attractive or anything beyond a fetish that they're trying, like their BBC fetish. And I'm like, why do you think every black man got a BBC? Like, honey, it's okay to be average. Anyway,
I have a question.
What's up?
So kind of like how you have that separation within the heterosexual norms, and then like, oh, I'm black, I'm African American, blah, blah, blah. I'm Latin, da 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 da. Mm-hmm. Is there that separation within LGBT as well?
Most definitely.
Are you like
we have types.
Like,
what do you say?
I was like, I feel like at least within the gay circle, like it becomes like, oh, how masculine are you? How feminine are you? Like that becomes
like, that's what I was.
People don't want, like, oh, I'm not gonna date somebody who's too feminine. I'm not gonna date, and it just becomes like unnecessary. Mm-hmm. But
and it's like it further categorizes things, and this is really for me because I didn't know anything other than trade growing up. But like white LGBTQ people go into like, and maybe some others go into like Otter and
bear and leather and
Wait,
What the
these
fuck
are
is that?
all different.
I've
Honey,
heard of Bear.
Have
But
you been on Grindr?
no.
Okay. So Grindr and Scruff have these things.
I've been
but
on the black alternative.
what, Jack?
Yes.
I think Jack has tried too. But
That's too much.
it further categorizes people to be in these, to limit themselves to certain types of people.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the stuff you're listening kind of like STEM or a stud. Is it like that?
Kind of sort of like Butch. Like it I think Butch, Stud, Trade are all very black.
Damn.
But like it's that understanding of identity and trying to find your community. And what I think it does, especially for people who just want to be people and just love, especially pansexuals. I feel so sorry for pansexuals because they just want to be out here just
I think I'm
doing their thing.
pansexual.
Yeah,
Or-
I think,
I don't know what I.
honey, you exist in your black ass
You
skin.
black.
I mean, period.
Me too.
And so, I guess something that we can use to kind of wrap things up because I don't want us to go on for too long. But like, it's this idea of, I think we just all need to come together, and that's why we're having these conversations now, to find a united front. Because in order for us to be able to progress, especially in this time of like Black Lives Matter and this time of trying to influence certain legislation and this time of trying to uplift
Yeah.
and to really debunk a lot of the fucked up things that lie within the foundations of, it's great. A lot of the fucked up things that lie within the foundation of these American organizations and structures. Like, what is something that you really just want our united front as Black people to just get through their thick
I
ass
just want
goals?
us all to be black.
I got one.
A lot of shit could go away and be done with. We just all just want to be black.
I would say ain't nothing new under the sun. I feel like Black folk been saying it for a long time, but it's the truth. If you think about the Harlem Renaissance writers, a lot of them were not straight.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody loves to talk about all their wonderful contributions to the Renaissance and just all the wonderful things that happened throughout that time. But people only talk about their Blackness. People won't talk about their sexual identities. If you think about Bayard Rustin, for example, had so much influence on the March on Washington, but gets very little to no credit for how much organization went behind that because he was a gay man. I think when we finally get to a point where we recognize that a lot of the things that we face today is because of a refusal to acknowledge things that have happened in the past, they were fully, then we'll start to understand and make sense of where we are today so that we can fix ourselves for the future. Because I think a lot of times parents are raising children for the world that they grew up in and not for the world that they're going to encounter. And it's very, 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 very important that we start to make those shifts now. Otherwise, we're going to watch our kids doing the same thing that we're doing now in a different way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind me digging into that, because I know me just dancing for you in your company this past year, and I have to because it's so important. Like I grasp so much from being in the company, but I feel like you've done a lot of that with your company. Like, can you talk about just applying some of those things to your platform and utilizing your platform?
I think. Okay, so I'll take a piece. So Sean danced in one of these pieces called Giovanni. I don't know if you've ever read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. If you haven't, this is a shameless plug about some work that I didn't write myself, but it is an excellent piece of writing. It's really, really short. You could probably read it in a day, no exaggeration. But for me, it's become very, very important to use. I have a whole dance company, and for me, I only care about stuff that got to do with Black folk. I'm not quiet about it. You're not going to see my company performing stuff that's very specific to white folks because it's just not an experience that I want to engage in. And so I had this piece called Giovanni, and it starts off with a Black preacher talking about the point I was just making, actually, about a lot of these Harlem Renaissance writers who don't get the credit for being something other than heterosexual or cisgendered. But they were still blessed by God. And if you can actually find the sermon online, it's by Otis Moss III, like very, very wonderful sermon. And I think it's really, really important to like use the creative platforms to really, really start conversations, because that's just one piece about the LGBTQ struggle, right? And how it manifests itself into like religious and historical spaces that don't always, like, we don't always get what's the word I'm looking for here?
Your flowers,
notoriety
your,
you know, like the notoriety that's deserved doesn't always follow. And it's extremely important that we start to make those shifts. I think even like, I have another piece called The Widow's Prayer that deals with how widows are treated on the continent of Africa, because a lot of time like widowhood is like viewed as this thing, and it's really rooted in tradition. Like, oh, widows should be treated this way, widows should be treated that way, and they're ostracized in their communities. And I think a lot of times people just view things as, oh, well, that's just the way the world is. And that's just the way we do things. And the way we've been doing things and the way the world is, we can clearly identify something as wrong, but we're not always willing to push the envelope of how do we change it. And until we get there, it's gonna be ghetto. It's gonna be real ghetto. Like, we really got to start shifting. And I think even as a creative, like my life's work is my creativity, and I use that to spark conversation, because I know that I create pieces that make people uncomfortable. Like, and I'm very well aware of that. And I'm aware, like, there's going to come a point where people are going to be like, I'm not going back to see them again because it was just too much. And that's fine. It's not for you. But I'm going to make you think. You know, like, that groundwork has already been laid. So now when something else in your life happens, you're like, You know, like, you got to make people think. And I think we got to start encouraging each other to think and starting to push the envelope before we get too far down into our ratchetry that we're currently engaged in. CPH.
Well, I enjoyed all your pieces.
Oh, Piana. It ain't nothing but a black ass thing. I live for it.
Well, I was a bit like,
yeah, Widow's Prayer was your favorite, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Ooh, well, bless God for that. How y'all feeling?
I feel good. This has been good.
Okay, praise God for that. Like when you freshly moisturize again after the shower, it's like, ooh, that feel good. That's that baby smooth skin I know I can achieve. Sorry, that was weird.
Sasha, do you have anything for the people?
Anything positive, constructive? We like to leave on positive notes.
We are one. We are black. We are powerful. We are strong. Forgive. Apologize. Self-aware.
Don't be a bitch ass, raggedy ass nigga, motherfuckers.
Ghetto.
Girl, I like that. That's a future IG caption, to be honest. Forgive.
I'm serious. Like, forgive. Let go of the hate. Let go of the anger. Let go of the grudges, resentment. Be light with your soul and your heart.
That's real.
And be
that's Avatar status.
Be intentional.
Right there. I mean, a real Madame Zeroni.
Be intentional about everything that you do. And apologize.
She and said that
about self-awareness. And apologize. It is okay to be wrong. It is okay to apologize.
Yes, you're
Spread
right.
more love, less hate.
Love that. Beautiful.
Somebody that hurt you. You said apologize.
That's a running theme at this point. I'm curious to know.
Okay.
Apology shall set you.
Amen. Do I have anything? I feel like every time Sasha talks, I'm like, yeah, that part. I'm just like, no, I definitely agree. I just think togetherness is like the thing. I feel like that's been the theme of this conversation. But you said self-awareness, and I was like, yeah, that's another thing, because before people can really understand other people and how to click with other people, you really do need to understand self. And I have found myself being a better person in my friendships, relationships, so on and so forth. Like, because when I was better with myself. And you can't really expect people to love others when they don't love themselves. So I'm just, I'm learning to just show up for myself better so I can show up for others better. And so that we can all be together. But this is great. This is great. I can enjoy it. Honestly.
Black ass period. I live for that.
Can we do it together? 1, 2, 3.
Period. That was so therapeutic, Sasha. Yes.
I'm meditating a lot. Okay, nobody.
Girl, no, I ain't mad because that was a very earthy kid of you. And I fuck with it. I did too, honey. Oh. Blue rest in heaven, honey.
Lord bless him.
But okay, great. Well, I'm glad y'all were able to join us for this conversation. Sean, do you have anything?
Was that loud?
What was loud? I didn't hear it. You got anything for the people, Sean?
No, I'm in one of those spaces again.
Girl.
Is it a large space?
No,
She's somewhere on the
Wait,
tip
I thought we was
still.
at the Shaft. What happened?
Oh, she can't. He riding.
No, I'm good. No, I mean, this is all good. I think just through everything that we're talking about, as we give different perspectives, and it's so crazy how everything, like, we're talking about these topics and then shit happens.
Shit gonna continue to happen though, Sean.
Yeah. It's just, it's a lot on me. Like, I think I'm just very, we talk about self-awareness. Like, I think I'm very, like, in touch with myself, and I'm like, things are upsetting. Like, I mean, I've been, like, just on this wave of, like, really trying to, like, be comfortable in my identity these past couple of months. So, self-awareness, it makes me hyper, and I hate using the word hypersensitive because I'm not hypersensitive about it, but it just makes me super aware of other things that are going on. So
don't forget the let go part.
I'm gonna try to let it go, child, but these raggedy ass motherfuckers.
They are raggedy. You gotta listen to Samo, because Samo be selling some things.
I was listening to Raheem. What's his name?
I know Raheem. I don't know his last name.
He said today. He said, I gotta play the song for you.
Gotta play a song for me, honey, because
song.
I don't have any recollection of any of that. But yes, I think for me, everything that y'all said, and vote blue in 2020. Yes. We on the Biden-Harris ticket period.
Sorry.
We on the Biden-Harris ticket period. I think I changed our name on our Instagram to hashtag Biden-Harris. I don't know who you voted for.
It is.
I'm voting for Biden-Harris. Because I think, first off,
I'm not voting for the goldfish, so
for the Cheeto dust. I mean, Kamala Harris is a Black South Asian woman, HBCU grad, aka, like, she's on the fucking presidential. Like, we really need to just relish in this moment and just realize that all the adversity somehow, some way led way to the White House.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, she's running with Joe Biden. They gonna get it. They gonna get it. We speaking prophecy, honey. And God, if you're listening, I'm gonna need you to make sure that it happens, because I got time for another 4 years of bullshit. Because I will, for real. What is African Canadian? Thank you. Is
that a thing?
I'm sure.
I'm very curious what Canadian culture is like when it comes to, like, other ethnicities and stuff. Like, because I just feel like
is African European
I doubt
thing?
I think they go by their nationality, because I have a friend who's Moroccan French, but was born
Moroccan
in
sounds
Brooklyn.
better.
I know, right? Like, what the fuck? French, anyway,
Stuff like that just makes me curious. I'm like, we have African Americans, so do we have African Canadian? Do we have Africans?
Probably not. America is so botched. We're just like, there's just no, it's so fucked up.
BBL was bad.
Well, I thank y'all for joining the conversation today. It's been a blessing. And yeah. Do-do-do-do-do. We did it. We did it. Lo hicimos. We did it. Woo. Girl.